How's it going, Saints faithful? Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak on Inside Black and Gold, gearing up for back to a Sunday game, a matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. Hope you have defrosted a bit since coming back from Green Bay, Jeff.
That wasn't that bad. It wasn't that. Other than watching the game, it really wasn't that bad.
Other than the game, right? The weather was nothing.
It snowed. We got the snow. We didn't have to deal with it during the game, so that was nice. My wife flew out. She wanted to do Christmas in Green Bay for some bizarre reason. So she got her snowy Christmas, whatever. She got to see the snow fall, and she's from the South, so that's interesting for her. I'm like, all right, whatever. But it's funny, and you could attest to this. Like after sitting out there for that game, and everyone was like, "Oh, are you okay?" It was so cold. Like it wasn't. I wasn't even wearing a hat out there. Like it really wasn't that bad. Okay. I had the gigantic jacket, some hand warmers. Like I was good, but like the game itself was the misery. Like it had nothing to do with the weather. It was just. I could have watched that game in 70 degrees. It would have been like, get me the hell out of here.
We were in studio watching it in pain, so I know what you're talking about.
Like, I would love to know the percentage of Saints fans, and I mean, we'll never find this out, but I'm guessing it'd be about 50% or more who turned that game off with at least 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. Like, I think a lot of people might have survived through halftime and like, okay, they get the ball after halftime. Maybe they go down and score. Maybe something weird happens. And then, okay, I'm done. And I guarantee you a majority of Saints fans turned it off after the jump pass to interception moment. But that's neither here nor there. I got back to my hotel room at about 11:30, and my first act was texting you and being like, "Oh, I am not recording a podcast tomorrow." The Saints have already done enough to ruin mine and everyone else's Christmas. I do not need to sit there on Christmas Eve and talk about this game. I want to pretend this game did not happen. And I think everyone else would like to do the same thing. And so we were like, hey, we're just not going to record a podcast on Thursday, on Tuesday, like we had planned to. We had made plans to record a podcast Tuesday morning. The game was so miserable that I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So here we are on Thursday. And that's going to be this podcast. Like, I want to go through the injury updates that we got from Darren Rizzi on Tuesday. We got an estimated injury report on Wednesday. We're recording this before Thursday's practice. So we'll just give some basic updates on Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Erik, McCoy, Lucas Patrick, some of these other guys who got hurt, whether we might see Chris Olave, that sort of thing. Second segment, then we'll go through kind of the fallout from the game. We're not going to do like a 3 up, 3 down per se. That is on WWL.com. I did write it if you want to go check that out, but we don't need to go through it. The 3 up segment is about 8 sentences long. Maybe.
I was going to say, how did you find any up?
There was a couple. But I mean, it's even like, it's a stretch. It's a stretch at best. Like we're talking about like Dante Pettis. Like, good job, Dante. You caught that 3rd and 17. But anyway, and we'll go through kind of the fallout from the game, stuff like that. Final segment, we'll kind of like I said, okay, who are the players we want to see evaluations on? Like, who are the players that we haven't seen enough of? And there aren't many that over the last 2 games, I'd like to see kind of prioritized of like, what do we have in this player? And there's not that many players like that, but we'll go through it. And that's going to be kind of this podcast. We're not going to talk about the Raiders, really. We're not going to talk about, I don't know, but we're just going to get into it. But first, I mean, Steve, what was kind of the vibe of the callers after that game? If there were there any callers at midnight on a Monday heading into Christmas Eve?
Oh, yeah, there were plenty. We went all the way to 1 a.m., and we had callers carrying us all the way. A lot of folks, obviously, hugely disappointed, ready to blow up everything, pretty much is the general sentiment from the fans we got. You have to get rid of everything top to bottom and start afresh. I'm on board with that. It is a weird thing because it's just like I didn't go into that game expecting much. But somehow they under-delivered. Like if you go, it's like Christmas morning, and so where we went on this trip to Green Bay, and that was kind of our Christmas gift to each other. We're just going to spend money on each other out in Green Bay. We're not going to worry about gifts, and it would be like I came back home and I was still disappointed because like someone came into my house and stole my Christmas tree while I was gone. Like that's how I felt after that game. Like I did not expect any presents from the Saints, and somehow I was still disappointed with what I was delivered on Christmas Day, and that's crazy. And I kept thinking to myself like, okay, but what do you do with that information? Like they already fired the coach. What do you do now? Like it's not like there's anything left to tear down. Really, it's like it's all gone. Anyway, let's talk about that in the second segment. First,
go through like, okay, they did have an injury report yesterday, so let's just get through it. Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara would not have practiced, but it does sound like we're gonna maybe see them this weekend. And I understand why you might be like, oh, why bother? I don't know. Personally, I don't know if I could stomach watching them go out there and lay another egg against the Raiders. Like, and maybe it's me being selfish because I have to watch it. You can turn it off. You don't have to. You can watch it on ESPN on the score tracker or whatever. I have to go out there and watch every freaking second of that game. And man, it would be nice to just at least have one more win, one more nice moment. And I don't know, like, I don't hate Derek Carr to the point that I don't want him to have success against his former team. Like, I think that would be kind of a nice little subplot to an otherwise terrible season, watching him embarrass the Raiders. I don't know. Or maybe watching him get embarrassed by the Raiders and then he loses to all 32 teams. Then you have that. So both sides of this equation have something they can root for. And
the Saints are underdogs in their own building to the freaking Raiders.
That's going to change if Derek's active, 100%.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Spencer Rattler is the starting quarterback, and we'll talk about Spencer. But this is what Darren had to say about Derek Carr. Normally, I'd try to pull a video, but it was completely a conference call.
Right.
On Tuesday. There is no video. But this is what Darren Rizzi had to say about Derek specifically and whether he might play.
Able to do it, then we'll do it. If not, I'm not going. We're just actually going to throw him out there, just to throw him out there. But if he's able to function, and we feel like we're not going to have lose anything by him being out there, meaning from an offensive schematic standpoint, then so be it.
Yeah, and so Derek would not have practiced on Wednesday if they had practiced. Neither team practiced, so you got this kind of estimated injury report. We're just assuming they would have been honest. Who knows? Like, I've always wondered, like, why would they be honest? Who's going to hold them accountable for that? But either way, it sounds like Derek has gotten, that hand has progressed. He's gotten more functionality in it. And it sounds like they're going to try to get him out to practice either Thursday or Friday to at least game out what it would look like with him in there. Can he take snaps from under center? Would it be too painful? Would he have to be in the shotgun the whole way? How would that affect your offense? Would you have to be, would he be able to go to the ground and protect himself without injuring that hand further? That sort of stuff. So it does sound like we're going to at least go down that road because, whether Derek would probably downplay it and be like, it's just another game. He's lying to you. This is not just another game. He wants to get out there. He wants to play the Raiders. And I don't know, like, I don't blame him. Like, why not? What's the harm?
Yeah, for me, I've come to the point where I'm putting anyone that I have any hope of being on this team for next year and putting on the shelf for the rest of the year. I don't want to see Carr or Kamara in the game. Give me more evaluation of Spencer.
Oh, God. He just needs to get to the offseason. Like, I don't think they're going to give up on him, but like, God, I just don't want to see any more of him this year if I don't have to. It's just not good. But speaking of that, okay, here's Darren talking about Alvin Kamara, another player who definitely wants to get out there. He's 50 yards shy of 1,000, and it means something to him. He wants it. He wants it.
Alvin is working his tail off to try to come back. That's going to be probably for this coming week. It'll probably be one of those later in the week decisions with where he is in the rehab.
Yeah, and I think it's tough. I would be surprised if Alvin gets out there this week, but maybe week 18, if he's good to go, you try it. But that's kind of where you are with those guys, and like there's a lot of veteran players on this team that might not be here anymore after this year, and that's something we could probably go through next week. Like next week, I want to go through. Okay, who are the players on a contract year who might be gone? Who are the players who could retire? What are some coaching options that are now kind of on the table? And we've heard a few reports about guys like Mike Vrabel being potential candidates, Aaron Glenn, those guys. But that's not something I want to get into in this episode. But I don't know, like, do you not want to send Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu if they retire, which I think is really a possibility. Like Tyrann has been losing his shit on the sidelines of these games. Like he hates the defensive coaching staff right now. Like if it was up to Tyrann, he would have fired Joe Woods after that game. I think like he does not like Joe Woods.
Yeah, you can tell he's definitely frustrated out there for sure.
I mean, we talked about it on this. It's like he's not hiding it. I mean, after the game, I went and talked to him, and he was like, "We got out coached." Like normally, it's like, "Yeah, we all need to be better," but he was just like, "Dude, we got out coached. We sucked, and we were not ready." And it's like, okay, you get it. No, you need to play better too. He knows that, but it's very clear that he doesn't feel like he's being put in a position to succeed. So that's a whole other can of worms. But it is what it is. I think like I'd like to see those guys have another win in their column. Like, if this is Cam Jordan's last home game, I would like him to go out with a win. And I think it's very entirely possible he retires, right? So I think this is an important game for that. Like, I know it doesn't matter to a lot of people in terms of, okay, whatever, give me a draft pick, but I don't know, like that's important. I don't think you want the last thing you do in that building, if you're Cam Jordan, if you're Tyrann Mathieu, if you're whoever, to be, wow, we lost to the 3-win Raiders at home. No. So I don't know. Like I'm all for, this is a game that matters to the people in that building. This is a game that matters to the players, the guys on the roster.
I get it from what you're saying. My Saints soul, I guess, is dead. I was on the field back in the day getting to see Drew Brees' last pass as a Saint was an interception. So to me, everything has just crumbled from there. And I don't know. It just seems, and I know Rizzy talked about this too post-game, saying he saw effort, but it sure seemed like after a while, the guys were like, what are we even doing in this game? And it seemed like I don't want to say quit, but it was like, let's just go through the motions and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he even said on Tuesday that he went back and like looked specifically for like instances of players like not giving the effort. And
right.
And it's tough because if that's what you're looking for, yeah, I don't know if you saw like players and individual players being like, whatever. But like, I think there's a point where you're beaten before the play even starts. Because you're just not that 1% better than you need to be in that moment to, like, I don't know, like you don't believe you're going to make that play. So you're not going to make that play because you're not where you need to be to make that play. And I saw that a lot. I saw it on defense more so than I saw it on offense. Like, yeah, on offense, you just didn't have a chance, but they were playing hard. I mean, they were dropping passes, but it wasn't like they were just like, what? Like, it's not like they were making business decisions of like, I'm not going to get where I need to go to catch this ball. Right. On defense, it was like, you were just getting moved. The only guy that I saw who was really playing hard in terms of like, okay, there's no doubt that he's giving it everything he has was Colin Saunders because he's that guy. And that's why I appreciate him. He was one of my 3 up, like one of the few players on that defense that I was like, you know what? Good for you. And even he's getting undermined by his own teammates being idiots. So I don't know, man.
You go to that too, and it's just one of those things in that game with Alontae Taylor knocking the ball out. It just was like this compounded perfect storm of ineptness in that game against Green Bay. Nothing went right except for maybe a nice jump pass from Rattler, but right after that, you get an interception.
It's so remarkably difficult to get shut out in an NFL game.
Nobody had done it this year,
right? Because like even just a field goal, and you're like, I feel better about this. Because it's not a 0. And anyway,
Houston got 2 points yesterday.
Well, yeah. Well, if you want to talk about like the Saints are disappointing, but I think we all went into this season. If you had to pick a team that was the most disappointing team in the NFL in terms of like expectations versus what you got, I mean, like I think a lot of people around the league, maybe Saints fans and me even, like I may have convinced myself that reality wasn't reality and they had a better chance than they did this year. But like the Texans are going to win their division. And I still think that they've been a huge disappointment in terms of like, is CJ Stroud this year? What happened? Like this is a team that should have gotten better. And instead, I think they've gotten worse. Like they're 9-7, but it's an ugly 9-7. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But all right, a couple more. Let's just hit the other injuries before we move on. Erik McCoy, elbow injury. Man, what a just dreadful year for him from a health perspective. Just can't stay healthy. Like I don't even know what it is. Like it's like, oh well, when it was the groin injury again, you'd be like, oh okay, it's like a re-aggravation. This is an elbow injury, and for a lot, it's funny because you talk about a lot of positions like, well, okay, maybe you could play through that when you're a center and you have to snap the ball and you're right. It's his right elbow. Right? It's his right elbow that's being the problem. So like, I don't know. He probably can't even snap the ball in the shotgun. Because I remember after he got in there was some weird snaps from out of the shotgun. I just think he just couldn't do it. So you had to pull him. And so it sounds like he avoided anything major, but they're not ruling him out for the season. Doesn't sound like it's going to be surgical, but I wouldn't expect to see him back because I think that's an example of a guy that it's just like get to the end of the year. We'll try again next year, right? There's nothing I need to see out of Erik McCoy.
Right.
Get me to the end. Shane Lemieux can handle it. Shane Lemieux has been fine. And so we'll go from there.
No, that's like the piling on of misery in that Monday night game. And that was obviously a big one too when you lose arguably your best player that was on the field at that point.
Yeah, and it's tough. Lucas Patrick, he did not avoid a major injury. It sounds like they're still assessing what to do with his injury. It's a knee injury. He was in a lot of pain. He did walk off the field because I think Deuce was talking about this. It was like, if I can walk, I am not taking a cart off this freaking field. Because keep in mind, his career started with the Packers. He got into the NFL after a workout with the Packers. That was a big game for him. Like we talk about return game, revenge game. That's just like anytime you go back to where your career started and you get to play on that field. And, he knows a lot of people in that building. That's why MVS missing the game. That was a bummer for him. That's where he got drafted. That's where he played. So, yeah, he's probably going to have career. I don't say it's not his career, but his season's definitely over. And it's going to be a question, hey, do you bring him back? Probably not. When you're a guy like that, maybe it could be a career-ending injury because it's not like a guarantee that Lucas Patrick is on anyone's radar and suddenly you got to – like I look at a guy like Connor McGovern, right? Like he was a starter for a while, blew up his knee. He ended up on a practice squad. The Saints needed him. So, that's the type of injury that turns you from a guy that probably is on the short list for a bunch of teams in terms of, hey, we need a depth lineman. Let's go look at him, to maybe you can go at a practice squad and fight your way up. But that's a bummer for him. So sucks. He's a guy, they've gotten good reps out of him. He's played hurt basically all year. So you got to give him a lot of credit, but doesn't sound like he's going to be back out there again.
No, it's amazing. That's why I question even why Derek is motivated to come back, knowing that the offensive line is, especially with McCoy being down, why would I want to come back?
Well, in fairness, it's like basically the same offensive line he's dealt with all year. It's nothing new. So it's not like it's going to change that much. But all right, the only other one, Chris Olave. If they had practice yesterday, Chris Olave would have been a full participant. And so let's see. Do you bring him back? They're putting it on him. They're saying, hey, if you want to play, we will talk about it. If you don't feel comfortable playing, then you will not play, right? And it's like, I guess you have to make decisions a little bit in terms of for a guy's own safety, but like you can't protect a guy from football.
Right.
I think if he does play, it would be on a pretty strict snap count. I think you would be careful about what you ask him to do. I don't think you're sending him on any dig routes over the middle of the field, anything like that. You might be some comebacks, some goes, like stuff where, you like if you play Chris Olave, I do not want to see him running any quick slants right into a linebacker's chest. Like that's the thing. And so you are going to be limited from an offensive perspective, or at least you better be limited from an offensive perspective with Chris. If you send him out there, there better be you're trimming some branches off that route tree. Let's put it that way. Like he's not going out there with a full route tree if you're playing him. And if you don't want to send him out there with a limited route tree, then don't play him.
For him, that's one I do want to see get back into a mix a little bit, just so he gets some of that game speed to him and a little bit of confidence coming back from the head injury in case he's got any doubt maybe in his mind.
Yeah, I think there is that level of like, first of all, he's probably going to be wearing a Guardian cap. So you maybe want to get him used to wearing a Guardian cap in a game, right? There's no harm in that. And yeah, I mean, if he's not retiring. So if it comes down to, hey, we can get him out there in week 18 or week 17 of this year, get him back comfortable playing on a limited capacity so that we go into week 1 next season and we're not still talking about this, right? Because I just think that is part of it. So I don't have any, I would be fine with them doing that as long as they are very, very proactive and forward thinking about, we cannot have him running these routes. We cannot have him be the primary. And the quarterback needs to know that too. And the quarterback needs to understand, I cannot throw this guy into a big hit right here. Like this is not, and I don't think that's something that, like, if this was a playoff game, if this was like a game to win the division, and you probably wouldn't send him back out there because it's like, you need to be able to throw those balls. In this instance, in this situation, there's no reason to be taking any risks with a guy. So you can do that. And that's why I think it probably will happen. Now we'll have to see how that looks. We'll have to see. I'd be surprised if it's this week. I really would. And I don't know, maybe he won't play, but either way, it's good to see him back. It's good to see him in this position because I wasn't sure if we were going to get here. And that's kind of the last thing I have to talk about.
Yeah, Rizzy talked about the other day, and it wasn't after the game. I think it was leading up to the game in Green Bay, just the Friday before or Saturday, whatever it was, when he said, someone was asking him, how's Chris looking at practice? And he said, happy.
Yeah.
And that was definitely emphasized that, Chris is in good spirits right now. And I mean, that's obviously huge too, because you don't want a guy, I don't know. That's what my biggest concern is him coming back and feeling kind of intimidated or weary about getting hit again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, he's already a small guy. He doesn't need to be taking a lot of big hits, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think he was ever someone who was like, yeah, throw me that ball over the middle of the field and get me blown up, and I don't know if any receiver really wants that, but that was never going to be his game anyway. So it's not like you're losing that much if you're avoiding those plays, but like, I don't know. We'll see. Either way, a couple other guys. Nathan Shepard was dealing with kind of a weird eye issue.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He was a late scratch. And, I think the bigger issue was he couldn't see. And so whatever he did, maybe he got a scratch. I don't know. He couldn't use his contact lenses. And you can't send a guy out there if you can't see. So it kind of became an issue. And the other guy, MVS, when I asked Riz after the game, he said it was more of the injury that kept him out. But the illness, when he got sick last week, it made it so he wasn't able to do a lot of the rehab stuff he probably needed to do to be able to play. And so like those two things kind of played into each other. So I think the hope is that both those guys can play this week.
Yeah, you mentioned him with MVS when he was unavailable to go Monday. I was like, how much more of a hit can we take to the wide receiver room?
I mean, like that's what makes it really difficult to be like, how down are you on Spencer Rattler? But even then, I'm still down on him.
Right. It is a weird spot to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to give guy grace in terms of like, yeah, that's not the ideal scenario, but at the same time, like, anyway, okay, let's wrap this segment up. We're going to come back. We'll call this segment. That was the rundown. This will be the fallout. Like, where are we? Like, what do we do with this information and that sort of thing? But yeah, we're having some Wi-Fi issues. So if we have some weird cuts there, I apologize in advance. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the fallout, where we go from here, all that sort of stuff. This is Inside Black and Gold. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and didn't think about the Saints all that much during the process. We're getting ready for Raiders on Sunday, kind of catching up from Packers on Monday. Let's do it. Who dat? Go Saints. We will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller coming back at you after the Saints debacle versus the Packers and ahead of the Saints upcoming debacle versus the Raiders. We'll see how that goes. I am not particularly hopeful, but hey, we'll find out. I think it's going to come down to, hey, if Derek Carr starts, I think you probably win the game. If Derek Carr doesn't start, then I think Vegas is probably right, and we see what happens. But we'll kind of get, okay, what's the fallout? Where do we go from here? And let's start with Spencer Rattler and just kind of talk about where do we land on him? And let's start with you, Steve. Like, what is your kind of read on Spencer at this point?
There's been some moments, but definitely not enough. And he looks like a guy. He looks like a fifth round rookie right now. I mean, that to be fair. And I try to, look at things, and given the situation that he's been put in, it's obviously not ideal, but you still want to see better execution. They're just some points he gets a little overwhelmed in this offense. And I get it. You don't have the O-line, you don't have the weapons. So I really don't know how I feel about Spencer still. Seeing more of what we saw, obviously, on Monday night, I don't want that, but the Packers are definitely a superior team, and the Raiders are not in that realm. So I feel like I do want to see another outing from him on Sunday, even though from what we've gathered so far, it hasn't been impressive. And no, he hasn't looked like a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's my bigger thing. It's like he has not looked like a starting quarterback at any point. The only and here's the thing, like, we can talk about, hey, look great in that Commanders game. At this point, that is the massive outlier to what has otherwise been 4 incredibly disappointing starting football games. And it was a situation where he didn't start the game, right? Because I remember Kevin Cobb. I remember Philadelphia Eagles. Kevin Cobb would come in on the relief of Donovan McNabb and play great. And then it was like, oh, well, he could be a starter. And they traded him to the Cardinals. The Cardinals actually traded something for him. And then he went over there and it was like, oh, he's not a starter. He's a backup. He can come in relief and he can play well. And it's like, that's a thing. That's not like an aberration. Like you see that all the time. Look at fucking Jake Haener. He did the same thing twice. He came in and led just as many scoring drives as Spencer Rattler has. And here's the thing. Like, you want to be a starting quarterback, you got to perform well in your starts. And you look at the 14 and a half quarters. I'm going to kind of, because there's some he didn't finish. You look at 14 and a half quarters he has played as a starter, right? You have one quarter against the Bucs where you scored 27 points, and now 7 of those were a punt return. 2 of those touchdown drives, or at least one of those touchdown drives, started deep in Bucs territory. Another was a field goal drive that started deep in Bucs territory, and then another was a long drive before halftime, which is now currently the only long drive he has led for a touchdown that he finished off, because I'm not giving him credit for Cedric Wilson's touchdown throw. And so there you have it. A second quarter against the Bucs with 27 points. In the other 13 and a half quarters, he has accounted for 6 total points. I'm not giving him credit for the safety against the Chargers.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. In those quarters, he has been in those quarters, he has accounted for 6 points and has been sacked 17 times.
How many turnovers?
He has 2 interceptions and 3 fumbles. So he has 5 turnovers to 1 touchdown throw in those 13 and a half quarters.
I still don't know what happened with that fumble in the Green Bay game.
I mean, it's just an example of like, okay, so you look at it and you say, okay, how does a guy get sacked at double the rate of the other starting quarterback? And that's what's happened. Derek Carr started 10 games. He has been sacked 8 times. Spencer Rattler has started 4 games and been sacked 17 times. Is that so? You're telling me that's the offensive line? No, it's understanding what's happening. And that's what happened on that fumble. It's a play that the protection got messed up, and you need to be able to identify that as a quarterback and get the ball out.
And
instead, he doesn't. He panics, and he just, it was like something you saw from like Mark Sanchez, right? Like the butt fumble thing. It was like, they're not supposed to be there. What's going on? Take it. I don't want it. And he's a rookie. Like, and you don't want to talk about a rookie as if like he should be better than he is. But that's why I wanted this season saying, if you are a Spencer Rattler fan and you think Spencer Rattler has the ability to be a starting quarterback long term, you should not be rooting for him to start games this year, because that's what he's going to look like. And that's what he looks like. And so I don't know. Like if Spencer, at the pace Spencer is going, if he started 10 games, he would have been sacked 42 times. He would have been sacked times in Derek Carr at the pace that he is going. And that's unsustainable. You do not have the pieces around him for him to be successful. So you look at that, but it's also the decisions. I mean, like, okay, how do you get shut out in a game? Right? Because I guarantee you, if Derek Carr's starting in that game, and this is not a high bar to clear, but you're not getting shut out. Because but how do you get shut out in a game? It's every time you're in a position where you could potentially score points, you do something stupid, like fumble, like take it. The best play of the game for him was a really bizarre looking throw, but it was an incredibly athletic throw, and it shows you exactly why you look at him like, this guy has all the arm talent in the world, because he did this like insane jump pass, looked like Derek Jeter out there throwing a dime to Dante Pettis on 3rd and 17. I was just like, what the hell just happened? Oh, you barely had time to even get excited about it. Like the same time to clip it and send it out, but like, wow, what a dime! Because the next play, you throw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. And here's the thing: interceptions are interceptions. If you're a rookie and you're throwing interceptions, that's fine. If ball gets tipped up, whatever. This is a play that he was never open. You just didn't see the defender dropping. And it's like, that's just bad quarterback play. And it's like, I have not seen a moment outside of that second half versus the Commanders where you made multiple good plays in a row. And I don't know, frustrating. And I don't know how, like, and the argument to me to say, like, I don't want to play Derek again, I want to play Spencer, is because I want to send him out there against the bad team and see if maybe he looks better. Because the games he's played in, he's played for really good teams. Those are the starts he made, right? Like, you're talking about really good Bucs, whatever, division game. That's a tough game.
Sure.
Then Chargers, then Broncos on national television, Chargers, and Packers. So you're talking about 4 playoff teams, maybe. the Bucks they're still kind of in contention there, but
they're still in the hunt, right?
I would say they're the best team in the NFC South. So you're talking about 4 likely playoff teams, maybe 3, definitely 3. And you haven't seen him go out there and get to play a team like the Giants or play a team like the Panthers, like a team that you should be confident that he's a good enough, like I don't know. And so that's the tough part is if you want to look at it and say, hey, the Saints are 5-5 with Derek Carr as a starting quarterback. They're 0-5 with Spencer Rattler as a starting quarterback. What would their record be if Derek Carr had started all 5 of those games? I don't know. I don't think you're beating the Broncos. I don't think you're beating the Packers. Are you beating the Chargers? Maybe. Because I think that game was very winnable if you just score some points. Like the Saints were ahead 2-0 for a good chunk of that first half. Like if they put any points on the board at all, I think they have a chance. Would you beat the Bucks? Maybe. Because again, if you scored in 3 of the other, you didn't score in 3 quarters of that game. If you did, you put 27 points up in the third quarter or the second quarter. Like you give yourself a chance. So maybe 2-2 in those 4 games, and then against the Commanders, it's tough to say. That was a Jay Kaner game, so I'm not going to put that on Spencer. And he obviously came in and gave him a chance. So at best, you're 3-2, maybe 2-3. But it's tough because you don't want to look back and say, well, you're going to look back and say he went 0-5 or 0-4, but you never saw him in a favorable matchup. Is my point. So I don't know, but I just don't know how what you've seen translates into going into this offseason saying, well, he's
the future
guy.
Yeah. Thinking that, this guy is going to be the future starting quarterback of the Saints. I don't know who thinks that at the moment, because you have to be like a complete Rattler dedicated, like kind of Jameis one-on-one stuff going on here, making excuses for him constantly. And I don't want to do that. But I mentioned obviously the O-line and all the weapons being down, but just there hasn't been any like a glimpse of something except for that 2-minute drive against Washington where you had some confidence in Spencer.
Right. And I need to see it in a start. I do. I need to see him start a game and play and give yourself a chance. And that's the problem I have is it's not that you weren't perfect. It's not that you played like a rookie. It's that you just never had a chance. Like you didn't give yourself a chance. And that's been the case for 4 different starts. So I don't know. And here's the thing, again, he's a rookie. He probably shouldn't have been playing this year at all. That's why I said that at the beginning of the season, this is a 2 to 3 year project. And I think it's entirely possible that he comes back next year. He gets another year starting or backup reps in camp, right? Like you're not competing. I think you probably just say, hey, one of these guys is the backup. But I think it's also a good case study in why you want to have a veteran backup quarterback because, he's a rookie. It's tough, whatever. I think if you had a veteran in there who understood how to play in these type of games, you probably win 1 or 2 of these games. And instead, you have this. So, I understand why Sean Payton was always leaning toward, hey, I'd rather have a Teddy Bridgewater or a Trevor Siemian or somebody like that, right? A Luke McCown. Because when they got into the games, it was not other than maybe that Bills game on Thanksgiving where you really didn't have a chance. It was always okay, let's see what happens. Now, I think Trevor went 0-5 in his starts, and you were just he's not starting quarterback. But or 0-4 maybe. I think one of those starts was Taysom Hill. I think that was Cowboys game. It was Taysom Hill. But I don't know. It's tough because you don't want to act like, well, he's a rookie, he didn't play well, so you give up on him. But you don't get a lot of time. Your runway as a young quarterback in the NFL is not that long if you are not showing something to build on. And right now, I just haven't seen him show anything to build on. And you're talking about the Saints, you're going to have a top 10 pick, or at least you should have a top 10 pick.
Right.
And if there's a guy there that you feel good about, you're not saying, well, we have Spencer, right? That's kind of where I'm going with this is when you're picking in the top 10 of the draft and there's a quarterback there that you think he has a future. Spencer has not done anything this season that would have you in there being like, we don't need to draft him because we have our guy. So that's kind of where the fallout of this, fallout of these performances of this game, of getting shut out on national television, of making mistakes and not looking ready and looking overwhelmed is when the Saints are on the clock, that does not enter the discussion whatsoever of we think we have our guy, so we don't need to draft this guy. You don't have your guy.
The only problem is obviously
at least not based on what he's done on the field.
the problem in this draft, obviously, though, is there a QB worthy of taking in the top 10?
It's funny because I actually think from a quarterback perspective, probably, yeah. Now, this isn't going to be a draft where the top 3 quarterbacks or the top 3 picks are all quarterbacks. Like, you don't have that.
Yeah.
But there are going to be a few quarterbacks that, maybe fall to 10. Like if you're looking at a Shedeur Sanders, a Cam Ward, some of these guys, right?
Ewers. I think they'll be gone.
I don't think so, because I think this is going to be a draft where you see, like, look at the projected top picks right now, and they're not quarterbacks. Like let's look at a mock draft right now.
I figured Shedeur's going to the Giants.
It's entirely possible, but I don't know. I think this is going to be one of those drafts where you talk yourself out of a quarterback over the final.
And then who knows where Cam Ward goes? I just don't see him lasting. So you're left like maybe like a Jalen Milroe at number 10.
Sure, but again, like I think those are options, right? And it's a question of where you land on it. So I always go to the consensus mock draft here on this website. So Right now you're looking at Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. Like this has where's Shedeur? Well, that can't be right. This has Shedeur is not even a top 10 pick. But like, I mean, like there's a chance that people talk themselves out of these quarterbacks. And we'll see. Like the Raiders is funny because the Raiders they had the top pick basically wrapped up. All they have to do is not beat the Jaguars, and they couldn't do it. They dropped all the way to 6 right now in the mock draft. So winning these games is not a good thing for these teams. But yeah, Travis Hunter's up there, Will Johnson, Kelvin Banks, Jalen Milroe's up there, Will Campbell's up there. So I mean, you're going to have a chance to get one of these guys. But again, like that's kind of just to kind of wrap that up. Like, for example, if people talk themselves out of these quarterbacks and you really like a Shedeur Sanders and he drops all the way to 10, what's stopping you? Because it's not Spencer from taking that guy. That's
who's stopping you.
Sorry?
Prime, Dion. That's what's stopping you from taking him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dion, I feel like we'll see. I mean, none of these teams at the top of would he rather go to the Jags? Would he rather go to the Titans? Would he rather go to the Browns? Now, the Raiders would make sense for him.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But either way, that's the fallout. We don't need to trash Spencer any more than this. It just hasn't gone well. And that's been the case for Jake, too. Like, it hasn't gone well for either of these guys. You went into this season saying, I like both. I don't see how you come out of this season saying, like, either of these guys is the future.
Yeah, even the snake pit is really quiet of late in supporting Rattler, and you can't blame him, obviously, what he's been doing. I can just put that jump pass on a loop. That's about it.
Just make sure you cut it off before the next play.
Right.
And that's kind of what Riz said, and I agree with him. It's like, if you went and you put the top 10 plays that Spencer had in that game on a highlight reel, you'd be like, oh, we might have something here. But then if you go and you do the opposite and you put the bottom 10 plays on a highlight reel, you'd be like, uh-oh. So and
like,
that's not good.
Clueless.
That's not good. You don't want that. And kind of speaking of Rizzy, and that's kind of the next step here is, I think that game, it's tough to look at and say like, well, what were your expectations for the Saints versus what did they do? And I don't know if that's, when you fire your head coach, you expect bad things to happen, right? Like you expect to lose games. You don't fire the coach because you're like, we have a team that's going to win out. But even that, by those standards, that's ugly and that's tough. And I think to me personally, I think I put the number at 4. I thought like Rizzy, when we talked about it earlier, was like, what does Rizzy have to do to keep this job? How many games does he have to win to keep this job? I think was the question. And I think I said at the time, like, there's no exact number of like, he won this many games, so he gets the job. But I think there is a number of, if you don't win this many games, you're not going to be seriously considered for the job. And I put the number at 4. Right now, he's won 3, and I don't know, like if you go out and beat the Raiders and you lose to the Bucks, you're 4-4. And I kind of feel like you needed to win one of these 3 games you lost to really put your stamp on something. And not only did you not win those games, you gave yourself a chance, to be fair. You did give yourself a chance in the first 2. But to lose one of those games the way you did I think that's a bigger statement than anything you could have done. Because it not only showed that you were not a good team this year, it showed just how far away you are from not the 15-1 Chiefs, not leave the Lions or the Vikings. Talking about the team that's third in their own division. You're talking about like a team that's going to be going on the road in the first round of the playoffs. That's how far you are away from that team. And that's a good team. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trashing the Packers. It's a good team, but this is not like the 85 Bears here. Like, you were not competitive. You didn't just lose. You got run out of that building to the point that Claire was at the game.
I think everyone's talked about it. It looked like varsity versus JV for sure.
Claire was at the game, and in the first half, so she's wearing a Saints hat, right? And in the first half, people were like, kind of ribbing her a little bit. In the second half, they just felt bad for her. Because she was just like, they were just like, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry you came all the way out here to watch this game, eh?
You're like, thanks.
I spent that entire trip being like, trying not to laugh at people, because it's like, like you watch Fargo and you make and you talk in that accent and it's like, ha, 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 ha. But then like you go out there and like you get in an Uber and they're like, oh, how you doing? You having a good day? And I'm like, oh, like they're serious. Oh no, I have to just have this conversation. And we're like, oh, we got that beer. That's from Sheboygan. That's where I'm from.
Sheboygan. What a great name.
But they are so friendly. And it was just funny because like they're doing the wave and the coach is like, guys, can you pay the hell attention to the game? And I was like, they're bored. What do you want them to do? Like the Saints have not kept them entertained. And that's, I don't know. That's such a, like, as you're going through these interviews and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, why would we keep Rizzy? And you look at that game and you're just like, oh man, no. Now, if you come back and you win your last two games and you got to bounce back, I'm doing the accent by accident now. I don't know. Maybe that changes the equation. Maybe you feel like, hey, he bounced back from a 7-game losing streak and he kind of got this thing back rolling. He bounced back from a shutout on national television. He got this thing back rolling. I don't know. Maybe that changes something, but I don't know. To me, that game is a stamp on burn it down, start fresh. I don't care what it looks like. It can't be this again. That's what that says to me. Like that's the fallout to me is I can't do this again. Like nothing is salvageable. Maybe a couple of the players, you got some young players. Maybe if you really think Clint Kubiak is a guy and you can sell him to the next head coach, maybe. But I don't know. Nothing stays. Sell it all. Burnt down. I'm fine with that.
That was definitely the general consensus from Houdats after that matchup. And yeah, it's sad to think, obviously, where this franchise once was and the just the devoid of talent right now is really sad. But obviously, too, we've talked about the amount of injuries, but I don't know how many more excuses you can make for anyone.
No, I mean, like injuries happen, and this year has been excessive. I get that, but like Ritz can talk all he wants about how it wasn't a lack of effort. Like, I don't know, you watch the game. Like, if you don't want to call it a lack of effort, fine. Call it a lack of belief. Call it whatever you want. Like, they didn't have a chance. Like that from the first drive of that game. We can talk all we want about how Spencer Rattler wasn't good enough. I don't know. You're allowing a 94-yard 17-play touchdown drive.
That was rough. That was demoralizing.
First two defensive possessions, you get him into 3rd and 6 on the first set of downs, and you jump offside both times. A 3rd and 1 against a Josh Jacobs-led offense is basically a free first down. You're not stopping them. So, like, I don't know. Like, we can say it's on the rookie quarterback, and trust. And you heard us. We went in on Spencer. Like, I get it, but the defense was just as bad. Like. We're talking about Spencer. We're saying, how do you not get shut out? We're not saying, how do you win? Because they didn't have a chance to win. The second they went down the field and scored on their opening drive, I was like, they're going to lose this game. Because if that's going to be how easy it looks for them, right? You could score on every offensive possession. You're probably still going to lose the game. Malik Willis got in the game. He's throwing darts.
No, and then like you mentioned, that opening drive, then the Saints gave it back to him, and they doubled down with that second drive that you mentioned with just, what was it, 96 or 95 yards, something like that?
94 yards, 17 94 plays. And, yeah.
From that point, it was like, great, this is going to be a long freaking night.
Yeah, and like, again, it would have been nice if you led some scoring drives. You would have felt better about the quarterback. And if you felt better about the quarterback, you would have felt better about the game because you would have felt like there's some hope down the line. None of those things happened. But, again, it's like you ran like 14 plays in the first half, like just like last week. It's like if you you're not able to establish a rhythm. Kendre Miller, that was a weird situation. I think you went into that game with Kendre, and that's going to be something we could talk about in the final segment, really. But like, you were in the 2-minute drill the entire second half. That's why he didn't get the ball. And that's why Jordan Mims was in there. Jordan had a chance to show something he didn't. Jordan, man. Yeah, like,
he was also getting heaters from Spencer.
Yeah. I think he got better about it as the game went on, but like, there was one of the first throws he made was just a bullet to the edge of the field of like, guy, just get it to him. Like, it doesn't have to be a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Jeez, what the hell was that? He's getting wounded out there. One of the only guys I didn't come out negative on was Blake Grupe, because like, he's just standing there the entire game. They kicked off. Blake kicked off to open the game. That's it. He did nothing else the rest of the day.
Wow.
He was out there warming up. The fans were like, "What are you even bothering for?" And I was like, "They're right. Just go sit down. Why are you wasting your time? Like, you're not getting into scoring range." And it was a bummer because he was out there in pregame warmups bombing 60-yard kicks through. He was great. And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a kind of a a
little redemption for him, right?"
Yeah, because I think he was looking forward to this game. And he never even got a chance to try any extra point. Man. So that is
try to do in a post-game show and get going. Hey, now it's time to get to some Saints highlights. And then you get crickets. Right.
Oh, jump pass. Dante Pettis, baby.
That other throw, I'll say too, I don't know how Foster Moreau caught one pass that it seemed like he just lofted it up there.
Well, he didn't loft it. He gunned it. But it was like, what are you doing? Like, that wasn't a good decision. It ended up being a good result.
Somehow Foster got that.
Just another example of like, whoa. Like, that could have easily been an interception. Like, if Foster doesn't, like, he made an incredible catch on it, which Foster's been doing that all season, making great catches. If he doesn't, that's going right into the safety's arms for an interception, maybe even like a pick six, because anytime you throw to the safety that far down the field and they just have room to run, you're in trouble. But no, anyway, that's
for that play alone, Bobby gave Foster the Player of the Game award. I gave it to the fans that were out there because I couldn't find any Player of the Game.
I appreciate how many Saints fans there actually were. It always amazes me.
Right. You're like, what? And then the front row, it's not like they're up in the rafters.
Well, I think there's a lot of Saints fans around the country that wait for, like there's just a random Saints fan in Wisconsin. It's like, I'm going to that game, and they're always there. You always find them. But I always feel like after when you see a game like that, and it's like, are those Saints fans ever going to go to another Saints game again? Like, how many Saints fans arrived at this game that left with such a bad taste in their mouth that they're just like, I'm going to save my money next time? Because I don't know, I would.
Well, that's a good question. What we're going to see coming Sunday in the Dome, what's that going to look like?
I can assure you that Raiders fans won't be traveling. Because why would they do that?
Sure, right. Maybe a trip to New Orleans.
Yeah, but it's like if you're trying to, like, in a lot of, like, if it was the Packers, it'd be like, oh, they want to get out of the cold anyway, so they're going to come down here. The Raiders, they don't have to do with that. It's definitely not cold in Vegas.
No.
What is the temperature in Vegas right now?
I'd guess somewhere in the 60s.
It's 50, so it's
okay.
It's about the same. But yeah,
it's a dry cold.
It's a dry cold. The fallout is that it's a nuclear winter, and this fan base will not be livable again it's like the actual game fallout. You can go up to the surface, but you're going to have a rough time. Stay in your bunker, and maybe in 50 years, this fan base will be livable again. But for now, just cut your losses, eat canned food.
Don't worry, we got basketball season. Oh, wait.
We don't worry. Netflix has Christmas Day games now. Those were terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to hear the worst? You want to hear the worst part? I lost my fantasy playoff matchup.
Oh,
by
no.
0.07.
0.07.
That happened because Demario Davis got credited with a phantom half tackle on the kneel down, and it was not corrected, and that's why I lost. I had Kendre Miller. I could have started anyone else. I started Kendre like an idiot. I thought he got just enough. He did not. I could have started Zay Flowers, could have started Kareem Hunt, could have started basically anyone on my bench.
Gotcha.
And I lost because DeMario got 8.5 points instead of 8. Because like I looked, like
Holy
the Saints were on offense and they got a first down. Like, okay, the Saints aren't even going to go back on defense. Even if they do, it's going to be kneel down. So like I won, and I turned off my phone and I looked back at it, and all of a sudden I've lost. I was like, how did DeMario Davis get a half tackle when the Packers didn't run a play? So I lost that fantasy playoff matchup because I got cute and started Kendre Miller. So
that also seems like a ridiculous, final stat there to get credit for. I don't know if there's any hope of that being rescinded.
It's too late now. I mean, the game's already been played this week. I lost, and it's. I don't think it was I think it was like a stat correction from earlier in the game. But it was funny because I was kind of keeping an eye on it throughout the game because I was going against DeMario and I was at the game, and they were being very generous with you don't really notice it unless you pay attention. But like there was one, he got credit for a tackle. He was just standing next to a guy who fell. And I was like, he didn't make a tackle.
You're like, what the hell?
And normally I would have no appreciation for like the actual stats getting rolled up throughout the game, but because I was going up against it and I was up 4 points going in, I was like, okay, Kendre Miller is not going to get outscored by 4 by Demario Davis, who's an IDP. He did. I lost.
So like during the game when they started going with Mims and Williams, were you like, put Kendre back in? What are you doing?
Trust me. People after the game were like annoyed by it. And I was like, you think you're annoyed by it? Anyway, so
that's a bad beat for sure, man.
That's a tough one. But I have 2 leagues. That was one of them. I lost in that one, but I won the other one. So I am in a fantasy final this week. But I should have been in both. And this is a league where your third place game actually gets your dues back. So it's worth playing. Like I'm not completely, I could still get, $100 or whatever, but man, that was a rough way to lose that matchup.
It just goes hand in hand with this Saints season, sadly, Jeff.
I should have never bet. It's my fault. I can't blame no one but myself.
Right.
And it's like, if I didn't cover the Saints, I would have never done it because I was trying to get cute. And that's
I know it well. I did it many times this year.
I didn't start Jaden Daniels because I was like, oh, the Eagles definitely aren't going to allow 36 points to a rookie quarterback. And I started, and like the guys I started, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, both had great games, but they didn't go off for 36 like Jaden Daniels did. So if I had started Jaden Daniels, I would have won. Anyway, I don't need to get into it. Let's wrap up this segment. Let's go back. The fallout is I hate everything and nothing is good. And we'll come back. We're going to talk about, who are the players you want to see evaluated over the next 2 weeks? We'll do that. This is Inside Black and Gold. Who dat? Go Saints. And we're back. One more segment here on Inside Black and Gold. Just one episode this week because we figured you didn't need to hear us complaining about the Saints on Christmas Eve. Our Christmas gift to y'all was not doing that to you. And so now, the final 2 games. What are the only benefits of the final 2 games? I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. And it's, hey, you get to unwrap these nice little presents. Like, we haven't seen him play yet. Let's see what he's got. How about him? How about him? How about him? The problem is, if the Saints Christmas tree was that, there's only like 2 or 3 presents under there because there's no young players really that we haven't seen yet. And this was Darren Rizzi when he was asked about finding out about the players on your roster.
My big thing this week is let's see how we can respond, and we're going to find out a lot about a lot of people.
Yeah, and the problem is, when he was asked that question of like, are there young players that you're going to try to evaluate? He kind of just laughed because it's like, we've already been doing that.
Right? Who you want?
When you have this many injuries, you're just like, we've already played. Like, what are we going to learn about Spencer Rattler? We haven't learned over the first 4 starts. Like, we've already seen that. We've already seen Jake for a half. We didn't like that. Kool-Aid McKinstry's already starting on the outside. Alontae Taylor's already starting on the outside. You've already seen Shane Lemieux at center. You've already seen so-and-so at guard. This guy at left tackle. Actually, that's not true. Your tackles are like the only 2 players who haven't missed a game. We got young running backs. Yeah, we've had to see that too. There's just not a lot left in the cupboard. Like, you have pulled everything out of the cupboard, and unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot in there to start with. So I don't know, but is there anyone on your list? Is there anybody that you haven't seen much of at all this season that you think, hey, 2 games left, let's find out?
Definitely curious about a guy that, he's dealt with injuries too. Linebacker Jalen Ford, the rookie, a 5th-round pick. Would like to see more from him. I just don't know, how he fits in.
Yeah, the problem is everyone's healthy on the linebacker room, and I just don't know if like Demario, when you're talking about, okay, who you're going to rest players, it's tough to rest a player like Demario Davis just because he's an emotional leader, and it's like taking him off the field would just, I think that would do more harm than good to some of these young players.
Oh, right.
So no, but I agree with you. I'd love to see him, but do you rest Pete Werner, a guy who has dealt with injuries, who you've already signed to an extension? So I don't know, maybe that's an option, but no, I agree with like Ford. We've seen a little bit of Anthony Orji.
Right.
Marco Jackson's on IR, so you won't be seeing any more of him. But no, I don't disagree with that. I think the linebacker room, I think that's more of a week 18 thing. What I would love to see, this is my dream finish to this season, is like whatever happens in this Raiders game, it happens. But in week 18, you go out there, kind of like the Eagles in 2020. And you go out there and play great in the first half, and you're like, we could win this game if we wanted to. Like, you guys see this, right? Like, we could win this game. And then at halftime, with the Falcons fans rejoicing, because this is a scenario where it could very well come down to the Saints get to decide who wins the NFC South. If the Saints beat the Bucs, it's the Falcons. If the Falcons, or if the Saints lose to the Bucs, it's the Bucs. And like what the Eagles did to the Giants, and I remember this vividly, is they played the Commanders. It was Jalen Hurts as a rookie, and they were probably going to win that game. Then at halftime, I can't remember who the quarterback was that they put in, but he was atrocious. It was like
it Nick Sudfeld?
Yes, Nate Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld,
yeah.
And they put him in, and it was like you couldn't even sell that as like, oh, we just want to see what we got. Like if the Saints did it, you'd be like, yeah, let's see what this guy has. No, at that point, it was like Nate Sudfeld. Jalen Hurts is your rookie backup. That's the guy. You already benched Carson Wentz. So putting in Nate Sudfeld was just literally like a fuck you to Giants fans. And I think it was a edict from on high of like, Doug Peterson, you want to save your job, you better not go win this freaking game. They fired him anyway. So that's my dream, is you get to halftime up like 14 and you look great. And the Bucs are like, oh no, what have we done? We're in shambles. And then you bench everybody and you watch Falcons fans jump off a cliff because they missed the playoffs. That's my dream. That's the only thing I can hope for. That's the only happiness I could derive out of the end of this season, would be that happening. Regardless, who do you play? Like, who do you even bench to put in? That's the question. And like, because I'm not benching Alante or Kool-Aid to get Rico Payton on the field. Not doing that. Maybe I throw Rico in the slot and see, hey, maybe he has something in the slot. Maybe I throw Kool-Aid in the slot to see if, because next year if you bring back Paulson Adebo and maybe Alante and Paulson are starting on the outside, you want Kool-Aid in the slot. Maybe that is something you do, and you put Rico Payton on the outside, or even a Shamar John Charles. Maybe you do that. But the guy on defense that I do want to see, and I don't want to bench Cam Jordan this week because it's his final home. I'm saying it's his final whole game. I think Cam's going to retire. Because, like, what's the upside of coming back for one more year with this scenario being what
money?
It is? Yeah, he's made enough money. Like, I don't. No, I'm serious. Like, I don't think that's going to be the factor for him. He's got enough endorsements. He's going to be on a broadcast within 12 months. Like he's not a guy who's going to be out of the NFL. Like, oh no, what do I do now? Like, he's going to have plenty of opportunities to make money.
Right.
It's like, how invested am I in coming back for a season that's like, right now it's looking like it's going to be another one like this at best.
Right.
You're in a 2 to 3. I mean, like, maybe you say, hey, send me somewhere else, but I don't think he wants to be someone who plays in another team. I think he wants he's a New Orleans guy. He loves it here. He's part of the culture. He's part of the community. And if you beat the Raiders and you can at least say my final game in the Saints uniform was a win, that's at least something. So like, I would not be surprised one bit if Cam Jordan decides to retire, but because I'm also not benching Cam in this game to put an Isaiah Foskey on the field. But I am doing that in week 18 because I want to see Isaiah Foskey. And so maybe you don't give Cam, maybe you trim that rotation a little bit for a Cam and a Carl and get Isaiah more reps, because I just need to see what I've got in Isaiah. We've gotten enough out of Peyton Turner. Like, I've seen enough from Peyton to feel like, hey, if you want to bring him back, I wouldn't hate it. Because it's not gonna be expensive. I can tell you that much. But he did get through a full season. He missed one game this year. So, I don't feel bad about taking him off the field. I need to see Isaiah Foskey. He was my second round pick last year, and we have now gone through 2 seasons with no meaningful reps. And, whether he delivers or not, I need that tape. I need to see it, because we're going to go into next season. We're going to have to make decisions on hey, do we bring back Chase Young? Do we bring back Peyton Turner? And we have this guy under contract. What is he? Is he even an NFL player? A special teamer? One way or another, that's one of the few guys on this roster that you're looking at that box under the tree and being like, I still don't know what it is. So give me Isaiah Foskey, whether it's this week, I don't know, but I want to see him be the starter in week 18, regardless of how week 17 shapes out. I want him to be the DE1 on the outside across from whoever else it is. Because I don't know, he's a second round pick. This is not a 6th rounder. This is not what second round pick. In year 2, I need to know whether I have an actual NFL player.
Yeah, no doubt with that. That's definitely been a bit frustrating. Obviously, Saints fans, you look at this guy. He's the Notre Dame's all-time sack leader, and it's how does this not translate to anything at the NFL level?
Well, and I don't even know. The problem is I've never seen him play. So we can say that I didn't play well in the preseason. I guess I don't know. So what do you have? Because if it was hey, he got out there for 3 or 4 games and he just didn't deliver, that would be one thing. The defensive end position has been remarkably healthy. Nathan Shepard is the only guy who's missed a game in the last 10 weeks. And it's because of an eye thing that kind of crept up at the last second. Even the guy who tore his Achilles in the offseason, he's back. So there's just been no room to get him out there. So I don't even know, if you did have injuries, would you have played him? I don't know. But I do want tape. I want to go into this offseason with some tape that I can at least look at.
But the disappointing thing is, too, it's you would have figured he would have done at least something to earn some playing time, too.
I guess, but how, and he has gotten some reps over the last few weeks, but he's the 5th guy on that depth chart.
Yeah.
You're not, he was never going to beat out Cam. He was never going to beat out Carl. He was never going to beat out Chase. Maybe he would have beat out Peyton Turner, but Peyton at least has that inside-outside flex that makes a little bit more sense. And he's also a 1st-round pick, so it's not like you're looking at a 5th rounder or UDFA. So I don't know. Either way, that's it's the only guy on my list that is realistic. Couple others, and I'll just kind of run through them here. You mentioned the linebacker position, so Orgy or Ford. Let's see. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe you get a good look at him and see, hey, maybe this is a guy we bring back, right? But nothing exciting. Christian Boyd is a guy we've seen a decent amount of, but they kind of have left him off the chart. So I don't know, maybe you see more from him. Again, he's a 6th-round pick. Dallin Holker, tight end, would be nice to see him get some run. But personally, one guy that we have seen a good bit of, it's not like he hasn't been on the field, but I want to see Juwan Johnson take a back seat, and I want to see Foster Moreau get full TE1 run. I want to see him be the primary tight end in the passing game. I want to see him, what he can do in a featured role at the tight end position, because he's been a star. He has been a per-touch star this season for the Saints. And it's not even, it's remarkable how good he has been in the limited role he has. He's got 25 catches for 335 yards and 4 touchdowns. It doesn't sound remarkable, but look at December alone. He's got 10 catches on 13 targets for 118 yards and a touchdown. I want to see him get 7-8 targets. I think that he is a underrated athlete. I think that he can catch the ball. He's got great hands. For some reason, he's just never been a featured tight end in an offense. And so, I don't know, send someone else out there to be the blocking tight end. Give me Foster as our prime receiving tight end and see what he does over the last 2 weeks. Because I think he's deserved it. And he's also a team leader. He's one of the few options on this offense that is actually like when he gets the ball thrown to him, I'm like, something good's going to happen.
Yeah, Foster to me seems definitely like either a future coach or broadcaster. He's very well versed, and you want to hear what he's got to say. You mentioned tight end group. I'm glad you brought that up because another one that popped into my head, at least, I'd like to see a little more out of Dallin Holker because we still don't know what you got in him either.
Yeah, and I think like I wouldn't mind them sitting Juwan down. He's been dealing with a foot injury. What came into the season with an injury? I don't know. I kind of feel like I know what I know about Juwan. You know, if I don't think that we're going to find out anything over the last 2 weeks that we don't already know. He's in he's on a contract year. We'll see if they bring him back, but I would be fine if they just said, "Hey, let's see what we have in Foster and Dallin." And like Foster hasn't had a game this year with more than 4 targets. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games with 2 or fewer targets. Yet has been one of the more consistent weapons in your offense in terms of when he gets targeted, he brings down the ball. Even in the plays that don't count, he catches it. You know? So I don't know. Like, I like Foster. I think he's a good influence on this team. I think he's a good locker room guy. I think he's a good player. Now, is he at his best as a blocking tight end? I don't think so. I don't think he's a blocking tight end, but I think he can be a receiving tight end in the NFL. He's only 27. It's not like his career is written. I think he's progressively gotten better. He's 6'4", 250. He's good size for tight end. So that's a guy I want to see. That's the second to last guy on my list of like, it's tough because you talk about a guy that you've seen a lot over the course of this season, but I want to see him in a featured receiving role.
No, I totally get that. I mean, it's somebody, like you said, he's made the most of these limited opportunities, so let's feed him some more right now.
All right, you have anyone else? I got one more. You have anyone else?
Maybe a guy like Mason Tipton. Just we heard so much about him in training camp, and I know he's had some opportunities, but I guess trying to target him more. But I'm grasping for straws here, Jeff.
Yeah, the problem is like we have seen him featured throughout the course of the season, so it's like when I talk about guys I want to see evaluations from, it's like I already have an evaluation on Mason. It's not a good one. Like Kevin Austin's been out there, so it's like I don't need to see more of him. Like, sure, you can give him more run, but the evaluation has been done. And that's why when Rizzy's asked that, it's like, sure. I think they probably should get Mason Tipton out there over these last 2 weeks. They did this week because MVS was down. But I don't know. I kind of feel like MVS is the question mark that I have. Do you bring MVS back? And I don't know. Like, I feel like I kind of like Dante Pettis. I think Dante Pettis has played pretty well. And he's a guy with return flex who I think has been really solid in the return game. So, like, I don't know. We'll see. But I have one more. And I don't think this is going to happen. I really don't. But I think I wouldn't hate it. And it would be kind of a fun subplot for Week 18. It's not going to happen to Week 17, but it would be a fun subplot in Week 18. Is Blake Grupe inactive? Charlie Smith elevated from the practice squad. Get him a chance. Get him in there. Get him in the game. Because it's not going to be a waivers situation. You're going to be able to sign him to a futures deal anyway. Like, it's Week 18, so no one's coming and claiming him off the practice squad. I don't know. That way, when you go into next season and you're having this kicker competition, the question, you won't be able to say he's never kicked an NFL game before. Now, you're going to have to get him a kicking opportunity for that to happen, which isn't a guarantee, it would seem, for this Saints offense. But I don't know. I think that would be kind of a cool way to close out the season. Is this guy's been working. He's been there all year. He's been sitting. He's been biding his time. He's been hanging out in the practice squad. Get him out there. Let him kick a 65-yard field goal. and that would be kind of a cool way to end a season. And and I think it'd be an important evaluation because we're going to go into next season and there's going to be a legitimate kicker competition between Blake Grupe and Charlie Smith. And I don't know if he goes out there and he misses 6 kicks, that's valuable information for you. So yeah, that's my last one.
Yeah, why not? You start.
Exactly. Why the fuck not?
Who knows? I thought you were gonna when you said thinking outside the box or whatever here. I'm like, oh no, he's gonna bring up Ben DiNucci.
No. I no disrespect to the Fighting James Madisons of the world, but No, I do not think we need to get a look at Ben DiNucci. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting a look at Jake Haener. So, like, that's
right. I agree totally with that too. I'd like to see him with another opportunity.
Yeah, and again, like I just feel like it's like you got four starts. You got 4 starts out of Spencer. You got 4 starts out of Spencer. You got 4 starts out of Spencer. And again, it's like if you send him back out there again against the Bucs and it's another terrible showing, all that's going to do is make his confidence level worse. And it's already not high, but like I don't know. You didn't really give Jake a chance. If I'm Jake, I'm not pissed that you're giving Spencer opportunities. I'm pissed that the one opportunity I got, I didn't get a second half to show that I could bounce back.
Spencer I didn't get the full game. Exactly.
And gets shut out in the first half and does not look good doing it. Do we change quarterbacks? No. We stick with Spencer. After the game, Darren gets asked, hey, who's our starter going forward? It's Spencer. Like, so if I'm Jake, I'm like, now I get it. Like, I get why you want to see that guy, but like, don't I deserve a chance? I never got a chance. And so I don't know. I wouldn't hate if they went back to Jake in week 18 if they decided to go the backup quarterback route, but I don't think they will. So that's kind of where that is.
At this point, if Carr's not going to go and he is going to be shelved for the rest of the way, I would like to see some kind of rotation with quarterbacks, even though that's not the greatest, it's not the greatest idea, I guess, for some folks. But yeah, it seems they've kind of made a determination already on Haener. It's kind of written and done.
Yeah, and here's the danger of that is right now you can go in and you can say, with Spencer, he's a rookie, he's a young player, he's played 4 good teams, and he's played badly. But okay, we feel like there's some positives there. We feel like he's developing, and we're gonna figure it out. If you send him out there against the Raiders, a 3-11 football team, 3-12 football team,
yeah,
and he can't hack it against the Raiders, and he looks just like he did in those first 4 starts, I don't know. I think that ends something. Like, I think that pulls the rug out completely because there is no redeeming that. So I don't know. I think you need to tread lightly with your young quarterback. But hey, maybe that's like we need to figure it out one way or the other. So we might as well just see, hey, what happens, right?
Yeah, the only thing you could keep harping on for the rookies, like he doesn't have anyone around him. Everyone's hurt.
Doesn't matter when you play the Raiders.
Right.
It doesn't matter when you play a 3-12 football team. I don't care who's hurt. You have to be the better quarterback in that game where you're facing Aiden O'Connell or whoever. I don't even know who's the Raiders quarterback. Is it?
Yeah, he's back. Aiden O'Connell's back.
Yeah. So I don't know. So we'll
targeting see. Brock Bowers often.
Yeah. All right. That's it. That's all I got. Anything else?
No, I'm still spent too from that Monday night game because it was just awful, embarrassing, and kind of was like, what are we even doing now for the rest of the season? Let's start getting the new head coach in here and figure out what's what.
Yeah, I've never been more out on a season than I am. Right, even though 7 and 9 seasons, I was like, okay, fine. We at least have Drew and Sean, and we'll figure it out. Like, this is a season with no hope, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And all I can do is stop playing football games, man. Like, can we buy out these final 2 games?
And the wonderful thing is you get to be up close and personal for all the remaining matchups anyway. It doesn't matter.
Well, at least last year, like it was like you went down to that final game and you're like, okay, let's see what happens, right? You didn't have a month of this. We got a month of this.
No, it's like Saul, your punishment. It's like, you must endure these final 2 Saints games and see if you survive, Jeff.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We're going to get to the new year, and it's going to be a new me, new Saints team. Our New Year's resolution for the Saints is stop sucking. That's it. That's all I got.
Who dat? Ended on that.
Who dat? Go Saints. Thanks, everyone, for listening. That's going to end this podcast on such that positive note. Thanks, everyone who hung out another year of the pod. We're gonna make some changes here, probably going into the next season, but we're gonna figure something out. Maybe change the publishing schedule up a little bit, but we'll let you know. 2 more games. We'll get back to a normal schedule next week of post game, pre game. But otherwise, thanks everyone as always. Appreciate all the listeners. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Hit the subscribe button, leave us a rating, leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. Until the next time, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Appreciate you, Who Dats.